Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back, everyone. So it's our tradition to go around the room and have everyone just say their name, and then I'll introduce our teacher for today and we'll start the talk. So my name is Risha.
Mark. Michael.
I'm Greg.
Josh.
Ron.
Ricky.
My name is Mark.
Jerry.
Stephen.
Sean.
I'm Clint.
Steve.
Jim.
David.
Bill.
Matthew.
Mark.
Bob.
Michael.
I'm Brad.
George.
George.
My name is Cass.
Joseph.
Eric.
Jack.
I'm Richard. Johnny.
Bob.
Andy.
Welcome everybody in the room, and then also online we have Ed, Christian, Owen, Steve, Don, Frisco, Andres, Samuel, Tim, and Gaitis. So welcome everyone to our gathering today. It's my pleasure to introduce Ian Challis for part 2 of a Dharma talk continuing from last week. Ian is a student and teacher in the Insight tradition of Buddhism. He is a teacher, founding member, and past guiding teacher of Insight Community of the Desert in Palm Springs. Aya Kema, Lee Brasington, Narayan Levinson, Larry Yang, and Arena Wiseman are key teachers who have inspired and illuminated his practice. Serving the queer community is a passion. 2025 marks his co-teaching of the 9th annual queer retreat at Dharma Retreat Center with Leslie Booker. He is also a qualified teacher of MBSR, a graduate of Spirit Rocks Community Dharma Center teacher training, and was formally invited by Arena Weissman to teach in the lineage of Ulap Kin and Ruth Dennison. You can find more information about Ian at his website, ianchallis.com.
Thank you, Grisha, for the welcome and holding the space today. And just sitting as we were, that felt like a very, very long sit today. I don't know why. Maybe because there's so much in our hearts right now that we're sitting with. That's how it felt for me. And coming into today, feeling the loss of Rat, Jeff Lindemood, who was always the person I contacted with, and Christian and Jeff were the inviters and my contacts here. And I got to meet Jeff in May and felt the warmth of his personality and the kindness of his heart, and just really feeling maybe a tiny bit of what you all might be feeling in this room right now, the loss of someone who gave so much and so beautifully and willingly and kindly. And, reflecting on the great merit, that creating community and Sangha and opportunities for people to learn and practice the Dharma together results in. So that merit is with Jeff, and may it support him far into the future. And so I just wanted to name that and feel that together, and then also just feeling the incredible shock of the news out of Minneapolis, these extra judicial killings of people protesting, Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and just how dystopian and extreme and painful it is to hold these actions, and realizing that they're just the tip of the iceberg for what people of color are feeling, people who are being targeted because of their ancestry or their immigration status or the color of their skin, or because they dare to defy and speak up and say, no, this is not okay. And so that's what we're practicing in right now. And, that's why, as we were sitting, the phrase from somewhere in my past came up, binding up the brokenhearted. And I just thought, wow, that is so not what we're going to do. That's not what we want to do. We want to make space for the broken hearts. We want to make space for the energy of the heart. We want to make space for the defiance of the heart. And that's part of love, is defiance and saying no, speaking up for what's right, putting ourselves on the line when we can, and speaking for others who are especially targeted and in harm's way. So I want to continue the talk that I started last week on the journey from Samsara to Nibana, but just want to take a moment before we do that to just sit and breathe with how our hearts are right now and what we're holding and what we're witnessing. And just really, really, really appreciating these refuges, these places not to hide away from, but to gather strength from. Sanghas, communities, friend circles. Knowing that we are not alone. And that together we have power. So traditionally one identifies as a Buddhist by taking the three refuges. I go for refuge to the Buddha. I go for refuge to the Dharma. I go for refuge to the Sangha. These are the places of refuge. And some of the chants, it goes on, nothing else is my refuge. The Buddha is my refuge. Nothing else is my refuge. The Dharma is my refuge. Nothing else is my refuge. The Sangha is my refuge. Nothing else is my refuge. And I'm remembering the words of a friend of mine, Hugh, who, when he was teaching, when we started going into quarantine and COVID during the beginning of the pandemic, who said, when I don't know what to do, I can practice the Eightfold Path. And he said that 6 years ago, and it's still with me. When I don't know what to do, I can practice the Eightfold Path. I can take refuge in these practices of liberation, these practices of the heart, of growth in ethics, growth in practice, growth in wisdom. And I can do this with others. I can do this in community. We can do this together. So thank you for showing up today and practicing, offering the gift of your presence to each other and to this community. And thank you folks online for being here and showing up. We're glad you're here. And so I want to talk about samsara, which is the endless spinning of the world, the ways of the world, greed, hatred, and delusion. It's the endless wandering on through this life and, according to the Buddha, through many lifetimes, where we are trapped by dukkha, we're trapped by greed, hatred, delusion, and this is the suffering that the Dharma liberates us from. So we looked a bit at samsara last week, and this week I want to look at Nibbana, but really more the path from samsara to Nibbana, from entanglement to liberation. And if you can, I just would like to ask you to see if you can bring to mind a moment when you have felt free, or when you know, oh, I tend to feel free, liberated, at ease, happy at this time of day or week, or with these people, or doing this activity, or maybe it happened once or twice on retreat. But what moments in your experience feel the most liberated, feel the most free and easeful? And then noticing what might be supporting that. What's present and what's absent in those moments of freedom, in those moments of ease, even in the midst of samsara. So just maybe remembering that, we'll come back to that a little later, that sense of liberation that we feel sometimes in life. And if nothing in particular came up right now, that's okay. So sometimes it can feel kind of like a transcendence or a bypass or wishful thinking to think about nibbana or liberation with all of the suffering in the world, all of the pain in the world. Even just living a human life, let alone all the craziness that's happening right now. And knowing how our friends and neighbors are targeted and the way we see friends and family suffer, why should I be focused on liberation? Why should that be a focus for me? And that's a real question. So that's what I want to start with here, the orienting toward liberation and freedom on the path, and how that doesn't mean turning away from the suffering of the world and others. So I've mostly studied in Western convert Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, and I've also always really resonated with the bodhisattva vow from the Mahayana tradition. It's kind of a central aspect, and different formulations of it. But bodhisattvas are beings who stay in and of the world, because to them liberation is incomplete until it includes all beings. So it isn't just about postponing awakening, it's about sharing it. And so one formulation of the bodhisattva vow goes, sentient beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Desires are inexhaustible, I vow to put an end to them. The dharmas are boundless, I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unattainable, I vow to attain it. And of course, these vows are impossible to achieve in any normal human way. I mean, how can you save numberless beings? How can you end desires that are inexhaustible with the limitations of the human mind and body? So then, what's being said here? What's the orientation that these vows suggest? If my vow is to include all beings in awakening in order for awakening to be complete, I better start somewhere. Better get going, and that's going to need to be right here, right now, with this being, but not siloed and not disconnected So when we focus on liberation in our practice, it doesn't have to be a bypass in any way. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get free personally and be done with all this mess. Our own practice can be dedicated to the freedom and well-being of others, all beings. And so there are people that we encounter in the world who, because of their own personal practice of freedom, whatever path they follow, bring those energies of liberation and freedom and untangling to others because they inspire and lift people up. Their light shines and is freely shared. And their practice is that of a bodhisattva because it's not for themselves alone. So this last week we honored the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who of course was a Christian minister, a reverend. And his words spoken more than 50 years ago are still part of our hearts, embedded in our culture, and they express a bodhisattva's wisdom and absolute compassion. So in a speech on Independence Day in 1965 at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Dr. King said this: "All I am saying is simply this, that all life is interrelated. We are tied in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. As long as there is extreme poverty in this world, no one can be rich, even if he has $1 billion. As long as diseases are rampant and millions of people cannot expect to live more than 28 or 30 years, no one can be totally healthy, even if he just got a checkup in the finest clinic in the nation. Strangely enough, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality." That's a bodhisattva's vow of liberation, of true freedom, as relationship and not withdrawal. And liberation is not a destination that sits apart, but an orientation toward life and people and ourselves. Many acts oriented toward freedom. And so sometimes when we talk about Nibbana, we use words like the unconditioned, complete freedom, boundlessness. There's actually a list of 33 terms that the Buddha used in the teachings to refer to the state of Nibbana. And maybe there are so many words because we're actually describing something beyond words. And so for me, there's a lot of juice in using this word liberation. It feels more active, more shared, closer to that feeling, that flavor of the bodhisattva vow. Nibbana can sort of sound like a far-off, exalted place. And so liberating, it can be really helpful in terms of thinking of liberating rather than the destination. Because liberating points to actions, an orientation, our way of living and engaging in the world. So it's useful to get a sense of what it is that liberates, how we liberate, how the process of liberation works. The path from the spinning of samsara that we talked about last week to that still place. I used the analogy of a spinning wheel with all the movement out here on the edge of the wheel. And at the same time that's happening, there's a still point in the center. And the journey from samsara to nibbana is moving from activity, movement, stress, to stillness, to peace. And we can start right here, right now. We don't have to be on retreat or sitting in the most perfect meditation hall, although this one is very nice, very beautiful feeling in this room. You can feel the practice in spaces like this. This is how space is made sacred. So some people in this room might have studied with Kobun Shino Otagawa. Anybody? Okay. I just learned that he lived at the San Francisco Zen Center in Tassajara. And there's one line teaching from him that just sums it up so well. The contents of this moment are the contents of awakening. The contents of this moment, right here, right now, are the contents of awakening. So awakening is not somewhere else. Our movement toward freedom starts right here and right now. So when I asked you to bring to mind your own moments of peace, ease, this is what Thai monk Ajahn Buddhadasa called free samples, tastes of freedom, flashes of liberation. We all get these. And it can come through art or poetry or being in nature. It might be simply knowing and seeing fully, the Palo Verde tree in the parking lot, the clouds spilling over the mountains, or just witnessing our own body breathing. It's often simply in waking up to the miracle of life unfolding, witnessing the process without grasping, clinging to it. And when we have these moments, they aren't accidents. They're glimpses of what the mind is like, the nature of mind when it isn't clinging. What is present in those moments in the heart and mind, and what is not. So, just bringing to mind your moment, or remembering a moment, watching the night sky, planting something in the ground with your hands, walking in your neighborhood when it feels safe and easeful, observing a rabbit on the edge of the grass and not feeling so very much separation between you and it. A moment that feels free, untangled, clear. And what is there in that moment? And what is absent in that moment? And that absence is something to get curious about, to investigate. There's a phrase, via negativa, that's sometimes used to describe the Dharma path and the liberating process. Letting go of, setting aside, letting be. Ajahn Chah, another Thai Buddhist master of the last century, put it like this. You may know this one. Do everything with a mind that lets go. Do not expect any praise or reward. If you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will know complete peace and freedom. Your struggles with the world will have come to an end. And so there's that promise that in the letting go, peace or freedom become the predominant characteristics of experience. And that they're not something we develop as much as something that we reveal. So to borrow the famous organizer Marie Kondo's question, you might remember her book, the Wonderful Magic of Tidying Up or something. But her main question was, does it spark joy? If it doesn't, let it go. Does it incline toward the good and the wholesome? Does it tend to support your growth and well-being? If it doesn't, can you let it go? Easier said than done. Yet it does get easier the more you let go. My partners David and Sean, who are here, might not agree with me because I have the messiest closet at home. And I don't let go of things all that easily. But I do notice the more I do, the easier it gets. You know, when you're cleaning out that cluttered garage or drawer or closet, at first you think, oh yeah, I might need this Pride t-shirt that I haven't worn and has been in my closet for 15 years and is really faded and gosh, it doesn't really look that good. And you're ready to let it go. And then, oh, there's a set of butter knives that belong to my aunt or something. I don't really need these anymore. And you start letting go. And the more that you do, the easier it becomes. And before you know it, you're packing up this beautiful sweater that you bought but you never wore so that somebody else can wear it. The more we let go, the easier it becomes. Letting go in and of itself sparks joy. And that can be true of the habits of the mind as well. Okay, I guess I'm done with that particular resentment, that box of regret, that feeling of not enough. Those voices inside that aren't our own and limit our happiness. Out they go. And then you look around at what's left and you can see what it is that you really value, what really serves you, what really serves those you love in your communities, and now has some space to breathe. So I shared last week how, I was simplifying my view for the year. And I came up with 5 views aligned with my practice that I thought, okay, I can hold these 5 views. And the first is that I trust the Dharma path. I trust that it leads to less suffering for myself and for others. And I trust my ability to walk this path, my capacity. I may stumble, I may not always get it right, but I trust that I can walk this path. And I know that I don't do it alone. I know that I'm supported by ancestors of practice and Dharma, Sanghas today, teachers, friends. And I hold that all beings are worthy of compassion. Beings I like, beings I don't like so much, and myself. And I trust that my actions, our actions, matter. And so if I can keep my practice as simple as those 5 views, then when other things come up, I can measure them against those views. So when I think there's no lasting peace possible, I can think, I trust the Dharma to liberate beings. When I think I can't do it, I think, yes, I have the capacity to walk this path, not alone, with others. The world is hopeless. No, actions matter. Our positive actions matter. So sometimes when I go on retreat or sitting on the meditation cushion, I sometimes just get like fascinated by how tangled my mind is. I imagine sort of lifting the top of my skull up and looking inside, and it's like a swirling soup with too many ingredients, or a snarled fishing line, or a storm with branches and leaves going every which way. And there's that feeling like, oh my gosh, what a crazy mess. What is this? And I'm not alone in that. A couple of people laugh with recognition, maybe. But the Buddha also said, he was asked, tangled within, tangled without. People are tangled in tangles. I ask you this, Gautama, who can untangle this tangle? And the Buddha answers in part, a wise person grounded in ethics, developing the mind and wisdom, a keen and alert practitioner, they can untangle this tangle. I can do this. I can travel this path. So it's we ourselves. We untangle the tangle. Not alone, but we untangle the tangle. Using the practice of the Eightfold Path through sila, our ethical integrity, through mindful awareness, and then the wisdom that arises from that integrity and that awareness and paying attention. And trusting the momentum of the process, that the more we let go, the easier it becomes. Letting go sparks joy. And it's not the easiest thing to do. So the heart wants what it wants is a line from an Emily Dickinson poem. And it's also the title of a Selena Gomez song. And I looked it up, and 939 million views on YouTube for that song. So I hope Emily Dickinson has as many views. But this is, just exploring why we sometimes do things that don't really seem to make sense to others, to ourselves. Sort of like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but on some very deep level, I just want to, I need to. What does the heart want? What does my heart want? What does your heart want? Depends on how we look at the heart and how we look at our own mind-body process. Who is wanting and who is entangled? So the Buddha offered a framework of investigation of the mind-body process called the 5 aggregates, which I touched on last week, sometimes called the khandhas or skandhas in Sanskrit. And so these are the places where the sense of I seems to live. And basically, when you look at it, it's the natural processes of the mind-body formation, the organism, and the organism's strategies for survival. And so the Buddha asks us to contemplate and look at that. Like, am I my body? Am I the feeling tones that alert me to pleasant or unpleasant, that lead to craving? Am I my mental patterns? Am I my physical senses? Am I my perceptions? And so then the question, does the heart want what the I wants, this process, this mind-body process? Or is there a deeper heart? And so it's been really helpful to consider that the activity of the aggregates are concerned with continuing life, and that I have taken the tools and strategies for sustaining life as being me. That I've been basically working for them, entangled with them, employed by them, in their service, mostly unconsciously, for most of my life. And so as I begin to wake up to that, the question comes up, does the heart want what the I wants? This is at the center of the process of letting go. Letting go of the sense of the limited, disconnecting, competing, hungry I that leads to our personal and collective suffering. And then letting go into Dr. King's interrelated structure of reality. So the aggregates have their own agenda, and we tend to identify with that until we begin this letting go process, the disentangling, and listening for what it is that deep heart wants. It's a question to explore in our meditation. What do I really, really want? I'm pretty sure it's not that fantastic vacation or new this or that or wealth or fame or power. And if it is, what's underneath that? How deep can you go? Because the chasing after what the I wants is what keeps us spinning on the wheel of samsara. So I want to read a short passage from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, who was a realized Tibetan master of the last century. And he said, the idea of an enduring self has kept you wandering helplessly for countless past lifetimes. That's samsara. It's the very thing that now prevents you from liberating yourself and others from conditioned existence. If you could simply let go of that one thought of I, you would find it easy to be free and to free others too. If you overcome the belief in a truly existing self today, you will be enlightened tomorrow. Use any practice you do to dissolve this idea of I and the self-oriented motivations that accompany it. Even if you do not succeed in the beginning, keep trying. I came on a tagline for an article in Tricycle this last week where it was a bodhisattva disrupts the status quo. That's what we're doing. Bodhisattva disrupts the status quo. We're questioning what we've taken for granted and staying on that liberating path. We have the practices of the path: integrity, mindful awareness, deep looking, that incline us toward freedom, toward this capacity to dissolve the sense of the concrete, bound, tangled sense of I that seems so real. And from everything that I know in my practice, it's a gradual path. Small steps. Okay, let me work with this little part of the knot. Inclining again and again and again. Many liberating moments over time that lead us to final liberation. And sometimes those moments can be quite sudden, like, oh wow, I just woke up a little bit here. But it's based on many, many acts of practice. So we keep showing up, keep inquiring. What does the heart really want? And what, when I do it, is liberating? And what, when I don't do it, is liberating? When is it time to let go? And what can I let go of? And so again, let's circle back finally to this word of Nibāna with a capital N, this grand word, the fullness of the liberating process, the end of suffering, the end of samsara. Is it possible to know it if I don't have a direct experience of it yet? This is where faith comes in. I trust the path. We talked about last week how faith is the first of the 5 spiritual powers. What I know is that the more I practice, the less solid and fixed the I feels. The less I believe in an unchanging thing called me. And the safer I feel doing so. This isn't a practice to rush. And I haven't experienced Nibbana, and none of my teachers claim that they have. I have my suspicions, but none of them will say. And the people who think that they have experienced Nibbana usually make me a little nervous. And the Buddha was often pressed about Nibbana, and usually he was silent and wouldn't answer speculative questions. And at other times he pointed to the state of full liberation, calling it unborn, unconditioned, unmade. And so I'd like to close with one of the beautiful teachings from the Buddha, from the Udana, which are the inspired utterances, where there's lots of suttas on Nibbana. And the Buddha is speaking to the monks and nuns and says, there is that dimension where there is neither earth, nor water, nor fire, nor wind. And he's speaking of the 4 elements, the building blocks of life. Neither dimension of the infinitude of space, nor dimension of the infinitude of consciousness, nor dimension of nothingness, nor dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. So those are the immaterial jhanas, the highest meditative states. And so the Buddha is showing us that the dimension of Nibbana is not even to be found there in the most sublime meditations. Neither in this world nor the next world, nor sun nor moon. And there I say, there is neither coming nor going, nor staying, neither passing away nor arising, unestablished, unevolving, without support, meaning that it is not dependent. This, just this, is the end of dukkha, the end of suffering, the end of samsara. So let's just take 30 seconds and then I want to open the floor just to let the words land and the body to move or take any breaths that it needs. So thank you. I see that the time is a little late. I went a little long, but I really want to, especially since there's so many beautiful people here, open the floor and find out what's in your heart, what's on your mind, any questions you have, anything that you want to say. It doesn't have to be about the talk, but just really want to create some space. So, do we pass a mic inside? Or?
No, we just ask everyone to please use your 10-foot voice so that people online and people on the podcast will be able to hear your question. And if you feel comfortable even repeating the question,
okay.
If it's not too...
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you for your talk
Yeah.
and delineating the path again and the different lineages that seek different keyholes to open that door. What struck me at the end of the last talk was that the wheel itself reminded me of a hurricane. So that instead of the middle of being a spoke or the wheel, sort of, you were in the lowest point of creativity in a certain way, or self-creation, so that it felt like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree touching the earth, so that the sense of it's a moment of lowest pressure, like in a hurricane. It's also a moment of repose, and so I guess the stepping in that moment for me is to find that delighted curiosity of all that swirls about me, and to realize that I'm all the winds and the moment of quiet, and well, I want to make a leap into quantum fields, and I can't do it, but it's basically that sense that since everything has changed, and most of our practice is dealing with holding on and change, there, that delightful curiosity seems to be the process throughout this to realize that we're always becoming and we're always dissolving, and that there's a grounded being which is eluding in nibbāna, which is just consciousness itself. I mean, there's certain practices in Tibetan Buddhism that look at that ground and realize that sometimes there's, in quantum theory now, it's sort of like that excitation and sort of coagulation of what seems to be light or electrons and stuff that we seem to be. And so I guess it's not really a question, it's just, find a little kindness, find a little happiness every day, and just always being curious.
Yeah, the curiosity is so important. And also what you're touching on, we are always in process. And that's what the Buddha was so big on. Nothing is fixed. We are not fixed. And that's where we get into so much trouble, is we want to be fixed because we think that means safety.
We all want to be fixed.
Well, I don't know where you want to take that.
Belonging is hard.
But we want to be able to be safe, and we think that safety lies in things always being the same, if they're good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please.
When you're recounting the bodhisattva vows, and then also that last Buddhist speech on Nibana, I taught at a school that observed both the French grading system and the American grading system. And when I first started teaching it, it said the French grading system goes from 1 to 20, and nobody gets to 20. It's kind of like this unreachable being in an American school with grade point averages, they kind of loosened up on that. I think maybe it's much more stricter in France. And my other thought on Nirvana is in Thich Nhat Hanh's The Heart of Buddhist Teaching, which is my first kind of introduction to the Dharma. He instead, traditionally the three marks of existence are non-self, suffering, non-self, and impermanence. Those three. He substituted the suffering dukkha with nirvana.
Yeah.
And I always kind of like, oh darn, why did you have to complicate things like that? And I pretty much still stick with dukkha and non-self and impermanence. But I don't know if you seem to have respond with a recognition of that. I was wondering if you know.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes there's the three Dharma seals in most Western convert Buddhism and Theravadan Buddhism, but then in Tibetan Buddhism, which I'm not really a student of, I understand there are 4 Dharma seals, and dukkha and nibbāna, anicca and anatta. So yeah. I like the 20. I'm going to remember that. May we all get 20s. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, please.
So this is a question about how do you get there? And it seems to me, you can tell me if this is wrong, but it seems to me that I've seen a couple of different models. And one is what I would call mystical realization. Which I think of, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's using meditative states to see through. And the other is what I call kind of psychological disassembly, which is to look at one's own feelings and thoughts and see through them.
And I would say those are really compatible, because it's those meditative states that you're talking about that we call mystical, but that tend to collect the mind, clarify our ability to observe and be curious and investigate, and then we see, okay, what is this psychological makeup? What is this physical makeup? How real is this? So often describing the meditative states as sort of like sharpening the sword of Manjushri, the sword of wisdom, and then that sword cuts through delusion so that you see the psychological makeup, you see the mind-body process more clearly. I don't think that's making sense to you.
I'm trying to figure out really what my question is. So I was with Shambhala for a long time, and I never entered into Tantra, Vajrayana studies there. But I just kind of had this sense that they were doing the first and not the second.
I see, yeah.
And that they believed that the first was superior and necessary.
Yeah. Well, it's never a bad idea to have more concentration, I think, when you're investigating. But it's also really important to clean up your act. And that's the ethical part of the path, really. I mean, that's the wise speech, action, and livelihood, and wise intention, thoughts of kindness and compassion and letting go. And sometimes people do develop, the powers, the siddhis, and these beautiful meditative states, and don't always apply that to their lives. I don't quite understand why they don't, but it seems very common.
Yeah.
Because if you're really following the path, you can't progress on the path without cleaning up your ethics and your integrity and living a life that is free from regret.
So we say that.
Please.
So what about just doing number 2? I looked at Shambhala and I thought, I don't understand it.
Great.
I don't see why I need to go there.
Great. That's great. That's, go where your heart leads you. As long, if it's part of the Dharma, if it's part of the path, Go where your heart is taking you right now. You know, that's what's important. That's where the juice is. That's where you'll want to practice. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Hi.
Bob.
You certainly got me thinking and feeling, and I wonder if, in fact, many of us achieve nirvana many times without realizing it, is when we notice it or think we're noticing and knowing it's happened, we lose it. Because I can think of many times in my life when I think back, ooh. But if I had noticed it when it happened, I think it all would have gone.
Yeah. I think you're pointing at something real. Yeah, I'm thinking of, Tolstoy, like, don't think of a white polar bear. It's like, yeah.
Those are the free samples you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the free samples. Yeah. Please.
I don't know whether this sounds very woo-woo, but I feel like there are benevolent forces up there that give us opportunities for the Dharma all the time and practice it, encounters or situations. And most of the time, we blow them off and don't take advantage of them. But I do feel, my idea of Buddhism isn't like it's all up to us. And if we do it right, then we'll get where we want to go. I feel like there are benevolent forces up there that they're trying to guide us and trying to give us in situations where we have an opportunity to make a decision one way or the other, and that affects our lives and how we see ourselves. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm totally open to that, and
I mean, one thing. I think synchronicity plays a huge role in that. Whenever I'm instant in synchronicity, I feel like somebody's trying to communicate something to me.
Yeah, pay attention to it, and don't close your mind off from it. And like you're saying, we do that so easily to ignore that. As I was writing these talks, I was reading a book by the Dalai Lama and Thubten Chodron, and they go through lots of different traditions, understanding of samsara and rebirth, and they were saying what you're saying, that there are bodhisattvas, like we were talking about, who postpone or wait to share in enlightenment until all beings can be free, but that they are still active. They may not be on this plane anymore, but they are still active, and they do want to help and communicate with us. And, my teacher, Lee Brasington, who we mentioned at the beginning, would have none of this. But others of my teachers would. And, I think we have to sort of feel in our hearts. One thing that is really important to me is to just remember that our practice is outside of time and space. And when I think of that, then it's like, of course there are beings guiding and helping us. And you can just look at it as the ancestors, like all the people who have practiced before us and brought the Dharma forward to us so that we can practice together. And all of us who are supporting each other's practice. I mean, that's a miracle, So why not? The whole thing is pretty miraculous. Yeah, thank you.
We should probably wrap up.
Okay.
So thank you so much for a great talk. And what announcements do we have, please? Jerry, go ahead.
Hi, I'm your host today. Please stay and enjoy the company of the Sangha. There are refreshments and hot water for tea. If you use a cup, please put it in the dishwasher or leave it in the sink and I'll take care of it. I'll be going around with a Dana bowl to accept contributions to cover our expenses. Your generosity is appreciated. Donations in the range of $10 to $20 help the Sangha meet its expenses. These include honorarium for our Dharma speakers, rent for this beautiful center, monthly dinners we prepare for Larkin Street Youth Services, our quarterly newsletter mailed mostly to people in prison, and scholarships for our retreats. There's a newcomer sign-up sheet on the credenza. If you wish to be included and receive our Sangha membership directory, please sign up and include information you wish to share with the group. Some members go out for lunch after the meeting. Everyone is welcome to join, and the group meets at the front door around 12:30.
Thank you. Other announcements? Clint?
Well, I'll make my weekly announcement about Larkin Street that Jerry mentioned. For anybody who might not know that, it's a homeless shelter for young people over on Ellis Street. And once a month we try to make a meal that's maybe a little fancier than what they normally get. A real good comfort food type meal. Bill Weber's leading it this we different people leading it. Bill Weber's leading it this or next month. He's going to have a Valentine's Day theme, so that should be fun. But anyway, that's something you might be interested in. It can be a very rewarding experience. We cook the meals in the shelter themselves, and they're very well received. If you think you want to participate in that, just contact me outside, and I'll take your name and number.
Thanks, Clint. Richard?
Yeah. Our April retreat at Vajrapani will be happening April 15th to the 19th. The registration will be opening soon. It'll be announced on our website. Sean Felt Oaks is our teacher. This is his third year, and he's absolutely the most fantastic teacher. And it's a really lovely retreat, mostly silent with a bit of yapping in the afternoon, so please consider coming. And it's open to all three people, wherever you find that.
Yeah, Richard, I'd like to just add to that for years GBF had our fall weekend retreat, and the spring retreat came out of a feeling of wanting to create an opportunity to really deepen our practice. And this spring retreat with Sean Fed Oaks is just a really wonderful opportunity. A lot of potential for deepening your practice. Observing silence for more than 2 or 3 days is quite a powerful practice, and I think that Sean really embodies the Dharma, just in his speech and his actions and then in his teachings. So I highly, highly recommend it.
And the scholarships are available, so don't let money stop you from attending.
Greg? Since, along the lines of Engaged Buddhism, since May I've been involved with a group called Bay Resistance, and they have about 60 what we call action pods in the Bay Area, 10 to 20 people that work together, share information, and take political action against what's going on. It's a really useful way to get engaged and to not feel alone and hopeless. So if you're interested, please talk to me in the social time. Thank you. Tom?
In addition to Facebook and YouTube and our podcast, we now have an Instagram presence. So if that's your preferred platform, find us there, Gay Buddhists. Thanks.
Oh yeah, and also Marcus and I last week set up a page for Gay Buddhist Fellowship on Insight Timer, which is an app that a lot of people maybe in here use for meditation. It's fun. It's a great app. I love it. So yeah, join that too. Anything else? Okay, let's gather for our dedication of prayers.
By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
We could leave this group of Just a question about my comment. I certainly don't know what Nirvana is.
Like I said, I think we achieved it.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.